In this section, we'll look at how to deal with Roman numerals. The first step is to find the letter that represents the closest number to the number you're trying to write. Numbers that are before are subtracted, and numbers that are after are added. And there can't be more than 3 letters of the same kind in a row. So if we're trying to change from Roman numerals to Arabic numerals, or our normal numbers, we look for the biggest Roman numeral, biggest letter in here. So X in this case is the biggest letter. It represents 10. And after it we have I's, which are 1s. And so they're after, so they're added. So this is really 10 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, or 13. Here, the biggest letters we have are the X's, and there's 10 of them, so they're added together. And then there's a 1 after it, so it's added onto it also. So we get 31. Here, our biggest number is L, and L is 50. V is after it, and that's 5 more added to it, so we get 55. Here, the biggest letter, represents the biggest number, is the X, which is 10. The I is before it, so we're subtracting 1 off of the 10. And the S's are after it, so we're adding it. Remember, SS means a half, or 0.5. So 10 minus 1 is 9, and then we're adding a half, so we get 9.5, or 9.5. Here, our biggest number is the L, which is 50. So we have 50. The X is before it, that's 10, so we're subtracting 10 from the 50, and we get 40. Here, the biggest letter is the C, and C is 100. The 10 is before it, so we're subtracting 10. So right now we have 990. The next biggest letter after it is a 10, but there's 1 before it. So we have 10, and we're subtracting 1, which gives us 9. But that 9 is after the C, so that gets added on to this previous answer, and we get 999. Here our biggest letter is the C, and again the C is 100. The next biggest letter is after it, it's the 10, so we're adding 10. The next biggest letter after it is the V, so that's 5, but there's 1 before it, so 5 minus 1 is the 4, so we're adding 4 more, and we get 114. Here our biggest letter is the L, and the L is 50. The next biggest letter is the V, that's 5, so we're adding 5 more. And then we have I's at the end, and those are 1s, so we're adding 3 ones onto the end, and we get 58. We'll do 2 more. So in this next problem, D is the biggest letter. It represents 500. Then X is the next biggest letter, that's after it, so it's 10 more. Then V is the next biggest letter, that's 5, but there's a 1 before it, so we're going to subtract 1 from the 5, and that gives us 4 that we're adding on to it. So we get 514. In the next and last example here, we have M as our biggest number, that's 1,000. And then D is our next biggest letter, that's 500. And then C is our next biggest letter, that's 100. And then X is our next biggest letter, but there's a 1 before it, so we need to see this as 1 before 10, or 10 minus 1, which is 9, so we're adding 9. And then we have this SS on the end, again it's after, so we're adding it, remember it's 0.5. So we have 1,609.5, or 1,609.5. If you start paying attention, or you notice at the end of movies, they use Roman numerals to show what year that movie was made, and Super Bowls are lettered with Roman numerals as well. So now you can start reading those Roman numerals if you weren't before. We want to go the other direction as well. We want to be able to write Arabic numbers into Roman numerals. So we look at this 17 and we say, what's the closest we can get to 17? And that's a 10. So we're going to start with 10. And to that 10 we can add a 5, which would give us 15. So that'd be a V after it. And then we still need 2 more. So that would be a 1 and then a 1. We want it all added together, so we get XVII. 10 and 5 is 15, 16, and then 17. For 11, we also start with 10. That's as close as we can get to 11. And then we want 1 more after it, which gives us 10 plus 1, which is 11. So for 19, the closest we can get is 10. Now we still need 9 more. So we see how close we can get to that, and that would be another 10. So we're going to put another 10 here after it, but now we have 10 plus 10 is 20. So we don't really want to add a whole 10 onto this other 10. We want to add 9. So we're going to put a 1 before that so that this together makes 9, and now we have 10 plus 9, which is 19. So we look at the 240. And the closest we can get to 240 is 100. And 100 is a C. So we have C as 100. Now we need 140 more, so we'll do another 100. So now that's 200. And now we need 40. The closest we can get to 40 is 50. So we'll use an L for 50. Now we don't really want 50, we want 40. So we want to take 10 away from that 50. So we'll put a 10 in front of that 50. And that together gives us 40. So now we have 100 plus 100 is 200, and 240. So we have CCXL. So let's look at 14 and a half. So the closest we can get to 14 with a single letter is 10. And now we want to see, we need 4 more, but the closest we can get to 4 is a 5. But we don't want 5, we want 4, which is 1 less than that. So we'll put the 1 in front of the V, the I in front of the V to give us 4. And then we want a half, which is that SS on the end. So here's 14 and a half. So 999, the closest we can get to that is an M, which is 1,000. And 999 is 1 before 1,000, so we put an I before the M, and there's our 999. Let's look at 362. So 300 would be 100, 100, 100. So there's 300. And then we want 50, which is an L. And we want 10 more than that because we really want 60, so we'll put the X after for 10 more. So now we have 360. We need 2 more, so we'll put an II for the 2. So this is 362. 66. So start with an L for 50. And then 10 more gives us 60, so here's our 60. So for 6 we need a V, which is 5, and an I, which gives us 1 more, 66. And that should help you do Roman numerals.